See the recording sign. Welcome, everyone. Just wanted to introduce today's webinar. I'm Sean Lovell. I work in the UN Stats Division, and this is our second webinar that's focused on the technology platforms that will be used during the Datathon. So this is going to focus on solutions from ESRI and AWS. And so I just also wanted to welcome our partners. We have people from the UN Stats Division, as well as from DANE, Ruta Ene, and the Mayor's Office of Medellin. And we, of course, have our technology partners, AWS and ESRI. This year's theme, Innovate for Sustainable Cities, Harness Data for Medellin's Future, is focused on creating state-of-the-art data solutions that will set the stage for urban resilience and sustainable development worldwide. So the goal of this Datathon is to tackle critical themes that you've seen: sustainable tourism, urban waste management, the circular economy. Our aim is to inspire data-driven solutions that balance economic growth with environmental sustainability and community well-being, using Medellin as a model for other cities worldwide. So today's webinar is designed to give you a hands-on introduction to the technology platforms that will power the Datathon experience. You'll have access to tools from AWS and ESRI as well. So this should give you a very strong foundation for crafting the solutions that you'll be working on over the 3 days of the Datathon. So just to be clear, you're not required to use these, but it's highly encouraged, as it'll substantially augment the sort of things you can achieve. There's going to be a lot of data that'll be available in these platforms, a lot of services you'll be able to tap into, and so forth. So without much delay, we have our two partners here. We have our folks from AWS who will be going first. We have Donetsky, Otano, and Ezra Mohammed. And we also have from ESRI, we have Kate Hess. So the first half of the Datathon will be dedicated, the first half of this webinar will focus on AWS, and the second half will focus on ESRI. And if there are any questions about the integration points between these, we just want to remind you that we're expecting things to be using local host, local laptops to move any data or any things that pipe between these. So we're not supporting extensive interoperability between these two platforms. You'll have to see these as separate. Without any delay, give the floor to AWS, Team AWS. That would be Donetsky and Ezel.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Perfectly? Yes, sir. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Alexander, and the rest of the team for allowing us to be able to share with you what AWS can offer in this during this event. And we're pleased to be here. So for the next 25-30 minutes, we're going to be sharing about the management console, how to navigate the AWS landing page and the account. Also, we're going to be talking about some of the services that are going to be offered or are going to be available for you guys to use during the Datathon. And we're going to be also talking about the platform that we're going to be offering for you guys to build your projects. And also, we're going to be talking a little bit about the support that is going to be offered during, before, and during the event, the Datathon in Medellin, Colombia. So I'm going to pass it on to Ezel. He's going to be covering the first part of this presentation. Ezel.
Thank you, Donetsky, and thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone from the UN team. So I really wanted to just discuss about the AWS console. This is going to be basically the first thing you will see when you get the access code for each team. So this is the actual front page of the AWS console. Now, you can access the console itself in 3 ways. So you can access it through the UI itself. So you can see all the AWS services here, as well as you can utilize the CLI. If you want to access the services through the CLI, you can do that. And you can also use the AWS SDK if you're programming something or creating an application. So there's 3 methods of accessing AWS services, and those are very important. Now, in the front page here, when you log in, the first thing you're going to see is the actual console homepage. And these are basically the widgets that you will be able to see and customize. So you have widgets regarding to recently visited apps, so it makes it easier to navigate through those services, as well as cost usage widgets. And this is if you're working on a project and you want to see the utilization through time. Right now, this is just a new account, so I don't have any data here. And then if you go on the top right corner, you're going to see your actual account number. So if you click on here, you're going to see how you're accessing through that account, either through a role that you're going to be provided, and also different settings here. So also I wanted to mention here is the regions that you're going to be using. So for now, for the Datathon itself, you're going to be either using US East 1 or US East 2, depending on how we're configuring it. You won't be able to access all these regions, but this is just a general overview of the regions that are supported here. And basically, a region itself is just a region or a location within a certain location, and it contains availability zones, which are data centers, right? So these data centers are part of this region, and they're connected together in forming that cloud network. So with without going too deep, just a high level, some of the services here that we offer are basically divided into different categories. So we have services for analytics, blockchain, compute, containers, databases, Internet of Things, machine learning. And, you know, from the focus of this Datathon, I think this would be something that you might be interested in. So you have options here to check out Amazon Bedrock. During our previous office hours, we went through this. If you're into analytics, there's ETL services that you can use, such as AWS Glue, and so forth. So please, if you have the chance, just to go around and check some of these services and something that might interest you more. So I'm going to go into the S3 service. So S3 is actually our storage service for storing your artifacts, your data sets, and it's an object store. And this is the first thing that you're going to go into when you're uploading your data sets into this bucket, because you're going to use those data sets to actually do analytics on it. And depending on your project, you're going to ingest those data sources. So basically, when you go through the S3 console, you can create a bucket, and within the bucket, you can name it something that's unique. So for example, we say Datathon UN 2024, and then you can give it a like a number, so or one, and then you can create a bucket that will store all your data sets. Okay, so now within that bucket, you have the ability to upload it through the console itself, so through the UI or through the CLI SDK. So the choice is up to you, right? So you can add different files in here if you want. If you have a particular data source that you're trying to look at, for example, I have this raw data CSV file. You can upload it here, and then you have that object into the bucket. So we're going to you can use that, and then you can ingest it through one of those services that you want to use, such as SageMaker or AWS Glue. So the choice is really up to you. So this is the first thing you would do. And we actually have some instructions here on how to do that. So if you forget, we actually have within Workshop Studio that we're going to provide how to access and do some of the commands that you might need to work with AWS itself. So we have a section here that talks about the different ways you can copy files within S3. If you want to copy S3 to S3 from a bucket to another bucket, there's commands for that if you want to do that. So we have a list of instructions here, AWS CLI commands. We also have our office hour sessions from last year. You can go through them as well, and hopefully that will help out. So this is just a list of different command references that you can go over. So with that said, I hope that makes sense. And And I'm going to actually, since we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to actually go present to some of the services that you might utilize. So I'm going to let me present. Okay, can you guys see the presentation?
Yeah, looks good.
Awesome, great. So now that we covered the AWS console, we're going to cover some of the services that you will most likely be using through the Datathon itself. And this is just a high intro. So some of these services that we have covered. So if you haven't gone through the actual office hour session, I recommend you check them out. We have one tomorrow, so this will be very very helpful for you guys. So without further ado, we have we selected a couple of services that we just wanted to go highlight just to get a better understanding. And we're going to talk about Amazon SageMaker. So SageMaker basically is a machine learning service. It allows you to build, train, and deploy models using the managed infrastructure that AWS provides. It's a fully managed service, so it allows you to collaborate using Jupyter Notebooks, using the Studio IDE, and basically you can prepare and fine-tune different models and pre-built algorithms. And you can also import your own custom scripts. It's really famous for you know, importing frameworks or utilizing frameworks such as TensorFlow, PyTorch, or MXNet. And you have access to basically about 400 plus pre-built models. So this is something that you might be interested in as you're going through the Datathon in those 3 days. So I highly recommend checking out SageMaker because it has a lot of these pre-built models. And one thing about SageMaker itself, it's scale. So you can scale through the infrastructure that AWS offers to you. So you don't have to run your models on your local machine. You can use the AWS infrastructure for that, and you can deploy your models and for example, for real-time predictions or large batch jobs. So here are the common use cases that you might use this for. For example, we have predictive maintenance. You can use it for computer vision, trend prediction, and many other use cases that I highly suggest to go and take a look around. So there's a lot of pre-built algorithms there, so you can utilize that. You can speed up your development time. Please check that out. The next service that we have in line is Amazon Bedrock that we covered in our last office hour session 2 weeks ago. It's basically the same, but more related to generative AI applications. It's a fully managed service. It's focused on foundational models, specifically large language models. You can utilize Anthropic Claude, Meta Llama for those services. And what I would recommend you utilizing this service and how you can take some like an approach for this is you can use the Bedrock API or the SDK. So you can create knowledge bases for your documents. And you can even orchestrate different tasks, such as executing different steps for those. So an example I would think of if you're going through the Datathon, maybe just an inspiration would be you can create, like, let's say a chatbot application with a private knowledge base of the documents and then execute those tasks in the backend for a specific prompt that the user puts in, for example. So I highly recommend this. Check it out. If you want to learn more, just go back to our office hour sessions, and it will cover most of that. Now, Amazon Q. We have two flavors of Q. We have Q Business and Q Developer. So Q Business is geared towards people who want to create like enterprise AI power assistance applications that can answer questions, provide summaries, generate content, and securely complete tasks. So it's similar to knowledge bases, but I was discussing this with so basically you can think of it as it's, you don't need to necessarily be like a developer, right? You can create those apps much quicker, and it supports many connectors on that. So you can use like utilize Q for that. We have Q developer, and it's important. And I highly recommend this if you're using Visual Studio Code to actually install the extension for this. And just a high level overview of Q, it's it's used. You can use it for natural language processing to ask questions about AWS or get some help with code and explore some of the resources or troubleshoot.
Yeah,
And
if you have data, numbers, that would be.
And you can actually use prompts to generate snippets for code. Example, if you're using JavaScript or Python, basically it speeds up the development time. So you can refactor some of your code, clean it up a little bit, and since you have a limited time to in order to deliver your project, you can use Q developer for that. So, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Danieski, and he'll cover Amazon Athena.
Thank you, Isel. So before I continue with Amazon Athena, I wanted to say that the first three services that Isel just shared, we covered last year. We covered Amazon SageMaker. So if you want to understand and read or watch some more about this service, you can go back to the office hours that we did last year for the 2023 Datathon. So Amazon Bedrock was also explained during the first office hours on October 17th. So that can be found there as well. And we cover Amazon Q last week on the 24th for Amazon Q for business and Amazon Q for developer. So those two flavors of Amazon Q were discussed last year. Tomorrow we have the next office hours. We're going to cover Amazon QuickSight in Q in QuickSight. That's going to be another interesting office hours. And then SageMaker, Jumpstart, and Canvas are going to be discussed on November 6th, which is the last office hours that we're going to have. So let's jump to Amazon Athena. And basically, why would I use Amazon Athena? So we use Amazon Athena to kind of experience a simple and near instant startup of SQL and Apache Spark analytics workloads with a serverless experience, eliminating infrastructure management. So basically, the data that you have in S3, just like Izo mentioned before, that unstructured data in storage and object storage, you can go ahead and interactively query that data and show it in a columnar format, right? So you can build interactive and advanced analytics applications in SQL or Apache Spark, tapping into data across your data lake. In this case is Amazon S3, or your data warehouse if you're using Amazon Redshift, or on-premises or cloud data stores without any movement of the data. So you can benefit from a flexible offering and a choice of language, availability of open data formats to work with and integrate it with your favorite BI tool. It could be either QuickSight, or it could be Tableau, or maybe Power BI, any type of BI tool that you're using, or it can be a data catalog, or it can be a machine learning tool. So the good thing about this, and you don't have to worry about this particular thing, because you're going to be provided with accounts. But if you ever using your personal account and you're using Amazon Athena, you only have to worry for the queries that you run. So you only charge for that, which helps you save on cost that require in the configuration any software updates or any scaling infrastructure. You don't have to be concerned about that, because this is a serverless managed interactive query engine. Next slide. And finally, we're going to talk about Amazon S3. So Amazon S3 is an object storage service, right? And ISO covered some of it, right? But this is an object storage that can be accessed through the API or HTTPS. Like ISO mentioned, you can access the AWS account three different ways: from the managed console, from the SDKs, and from the CLI. the AWS CLI. So one of the ways to access the Amazon S3 bucket is through these ways, but remember, you have to have permissions for that. You have to be authenticated. So it's a highly durable storage offering with 11 nines, which means that I think in a group of 100,000 files or objects, you will lose probably one file in 10,000 years, something like that, right? So that's what this 11 nines durability means. It's limitless scalable. It means that you can store as much as you want, right? Of course, there's a limit per object. I think it's 5 gigabytes per object, but you can store as much as you want. It's a scalable, right? And limitedly growing, right? So you have multiple tiers. And if you want to know more about this, you can go back to the office hours and read about and watch a video about S3. You can host a website with S3. You just have to enable hosting. It has data lifecycle rules, so you can move one object from one tier to another to save on cost. And you can determine how many days you want to keep that file in that particular tier through a lifecycle policy. It's secure, it's compliant with regulations, it's also audit capable. So it goes with the all the regulations and rules that a service or a company has to go through with third-party auditing. And it has standard storage pricing. You see here in US is one, which is Northern Virginia, is 0.023 cents per gigabyte. So more on this can be explored if you go to the AWS console and play a little around with this the management console in AWS, and also by watching videos. And there's a lot of tons of documentation from AWS available online. So Iso, I want you to go back to the Workshop Studio, if you don't mind. And of course, if you have any questions, you can ask in Spanish. There are certain people, some people here that speak Spanish. I speak Spanish myself. So if you have any question in Spanish, you can do it. So I want you to go to the environment setup and expand that. So this is the platform, the instructions that you're going to have during the event, right? We're going to be providing you with this access in the next few days or early next week. So you wouldn't have access to this particular instruction section until you're able to access the platform, which is going to be available on the 8th, on Friday the 8th, 5 p.m. Colombia local time. So in the accessing AWS account, you can have all the steps one by one of what to do once you're provided with the code, the access code, the link, all the instructions. You're gonna be able to go to this platform and click on accessing AWS account and follow the steps to be able to access it. I myself, I'm going to be there in person with 2 other SAs from Colombia. So we are going to be able to communicate with you in Spanish and give you any guidance that you need in case there's something that you don't understand. That's the AWS account access. So we also have the AWS services included in the Datathon. So if you mind, Azo, you can click one of them, maybe Athena. Then we have Athena there. You click on it, you're going to have information about this particular service. So why do we choose these services? Because these are the ones that are related to data analytics. And those are the ones that you most likely, and based on previous events and experiences in the past, these are the services that participants use the most, right? So you can go there and get more information about this service. So for example, Amazon SageMaker is, can you click on it? We have here 2 offerings, Canvas and SageMaker Jumpstart. So these are the ones that we're going to cover next Wednesday on the 6th. And then for those who are now quite familiar with Python and coding, AWS Canvas is a no-code platform that helps you work with models and machine learning tools without knowing any code. So you can come here and read about this. We also have the AWS CLI, if you can expand that, Isel, where it's already expanded. So here we have the services that when you click on it, it will take you to the AWS documentation. Maybe you can right click on one of them, Isel, and one of the services. Okay, and then it will take you to the documentation for the CLI commands for that particular service. So with the platform, you're going to be provided with the access keys that you can utilize from your CLI, your local machine, in your local machine, and then you can provide the access keys and be able to access the AWS service from the programmatic side, which is in the CLI. So here we have information as well. We can go back to the platform ISO, the workshop. We also have, if you scroll down a little bit, we have some direct access. If you want to click on direct access, it will take you directly to the service. So you don't have to type in the search bar Amazon S3. It takes you, once you're logged in the AWS account, it will take you directly to the service itself. So you don't have to worry about how do I find the service, right? We also have geospatial ML with Amazon SageMaker. We have there some documentation if you want to use some geospatial repos. That's something that you can explore as well. And also we have data sources. I know you're going to be working with data sources most related to Medellin, Colombia, but you can also, if it is applicable, you can also use the Registry of Open Data on AWS, also known as RODA, and explore some of the data sets that have been approved by AWS, and they're already available there. So there are instructions on how to crawl the data from this particular registry to your S3 bucket using AWS Glue. And if you're not familiar with AWS Glue, then you can go ahead and watch the video from last office hours last year when we expand on AWS Glue. So this is the platform that we're going to have. The Discord channel is already open. There's a channel for AWS issues and technical support. If you have any questions before the event, you can reach out to us through the Discord, and we will be able to get back to you and give you any guidance that you need. Like I said, there's going to be support in person and online during the Datathon. So we have 5 minutes left, and I want to open the floor for you guys to ask any questions that you may have. You can even come off mute, or you can simply post it in the chat, and we'll address your concern.
Perfect. I did see a few questions in the chat. I can read out a couple. One question from Diego. So are all the tools we are allowed to use located on the menu to the left? So I think this is the menu on the left here. So I think the question is, are there tools that aren't listed there that they could potentially discover and use? And I understand you guys, well, Ezel or
yeah. So these are basically services mostly related to like data analytics, but you can obviously use other services like compute services. You can use, let's say, for example, Lambda, like AWS Lambda, if you want to execute some code. There's other services within the compute realm like EC2, other storage services that you can utilize. So this is just mostly related to data analytics and machine learning.
Right. So the answer is they can use, which is one of the next questions was kind of touching on this was, are there restrictions in particular that they should be aware of in terms of, resource limits, VM service tiers? Can they use any of these 200 services? Any restrictions they should be aware of? Yeah.
Well, there's something that we have to get back to you guys, because there's certain restrictions. This is the platform, right? This is an AWS account provided by AWS, but there are certain restrictions that the platform itself imposes on the account, right? So of course, when you have an AWS account, there's basically no restrictions. For a first-time account, there might be some. You have to increase the quota, but in terms of permissions out for accessing services, there's none. So you can access any service you want, right? But there might be some hard limits that we cannot change, imposed by the team that creates this platform.
Right.
Like Iso said, there are many services. There are 250 plus services in AWS. We only kind of focusing on the ones that are more related to data analytics. But if you want to explore more, like ISO show, there's a section that contains all the categories of the services. You can click on the analytics one, and the first one, ISO, then you can get all the services that you can use in terms of analytics. But you can use compute, you can use blockchain databases, developer and user computing. You can use any service you want. There's no restrictions in terms of the services that you can use, but there might be some restrictions in terms of the quota in the that you can yeah.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the AWS quota system, you'll understand that, you know, for the workshop environment, it's quite imaginable that there are quotas that are different than you'd have in your own personal account. You know, you're going to have quotas that are going to be maybe a little tighter. So if you bump into these, it's not the end of the world. It just means you've probably overdone it.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So another question, which is very important, I feel, what happens to our projects that depend on AWS paid services after the event? I think this is very important for everyone to know.
Yes. So we're gonna open the platform on Friday, 8th, 5 p.m. local time. It means that from that time on, you only have 72 hours to make sure that the data that you're storing in AWS is out of AWS, ready for submission, or not ready for submission in your local environment so that you can submit it later. Why? Because the platform can be open only for 72 hours. There's no way we can extend it, right? If everything that stays in your AWS account at the 72-hour mark will disappear with the account. It will be closed, lost. So what we recommend is before the 72-hour mark to be able to download everything, all the artifacts that you have in S3 or store in AWS, download it locally so that you can continue working on that and utilize it for whatever you're doing next.
Right. In particular, Alex can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the artifacts we expect people to provide is some sort of code repo, or there's some reproducibility requirement. So, you know, what you should at least understand is if you've performed something in AWS, you should be prepared to at least write it down or reproduce, maybe put together a diagram of what you did so that it's understandable what your workflow was. And the data artifacts that are part of the submission should absolutely be downloaded from, assuming S3 or wherever you've chosen to host these.
Yeah, and of course, AWS is optional. You're not obligated to use AWS. It's just the platform that is provided by us, and you can use it if you need it, right? It's just optional. It's just like it says in the chat. Alex posted it. It's optional.
Perfect. This is great. Is there anyone who'd like to raise their hand and ask a question before we jump into our next segment with Kate Hess from ESRI? Any final unmutes?
Actually, Sean, I wanted to show something just for the next 10 seconds about Amazon Q here. So basically, if you have a question, like let's say a certain particular CLI question or any of that, you can actually ask here, and then it will actually generate you like an output. So for example, hey, can you list my EC2 instance? And then it will generate that answer for you. So this is on your particular account here. So it kind of makes it easier for you to utilize and kind of get a hang of things. So since I don't have any EC2 instances right now, it's not going to show anything, but basically it's an additional resource that you can use.
Right. Yeah, and maybe one thing, I don't know if this is overdoing it, but if you want to interact with AWS services and you don't have an AWS account, what we often do, we use what's called local stack. So if you're a programmer and you want to get experience writing solutions and you're a coder, you could choose to check out local stack. I'm not saying you have to, but that's a trick if you want to get ahead without cheating. So I think we have to move on. I'd like to. We can respond to questions in the chat in parallel. Let's see if we can give the floor to our colleague Kate Hess. Kate, over to you, so you can walk us through what ESRI has to offer and the ArcGIS environment overall. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Hess. I'm a solution engineer at ESRI. And if anyone hasn't heard of ESRI, we're a leading GIS software provider. And we're going to be offering, again, access to our platform as well as data and some tools for sharing out your work for the duration of the Datathon. So today I'm going to walk through one possible workflow that touches on all the tools that you could use within our platform, starting with talking about access to additional data sets themselves. So through ESRI, you're going to have access to the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World, which doesn't require a login to explore, so I'll put the link in the chat. You can start looking for data sets ahead of time. There are over 10,000 data sets available in the ArcGIS Living Atlas. And this might sound familiar because we covered this in the last webinar on data sets, but I just wanted to touch on it briefly again. So you're able to filter for Colombia. You can filter by imagery, boundaries, people data, environment data to see what's available. And for any of these data sets, you can select them to see the metadata, learn more about how this data was generated, and then you can bring it into a map to start interacting with this data to run analysis, to create an interactive map or application for use in your Datathon project. You're also able to bring in your own data sets to the platform. So this was something that we didn't cover on the datasets webinar earlier. But you can use a combination of data from the Living Atlas and things that you've brought in from your local machine or from other online data sources. So I'm going to show how to bring in a data set from the GeoMedellin website. They offer downloads of the data as CSV, GeoJSON. We're going to grab it as a shapefile. And when that shapefile downloads, I can leave it in the zip file and go to the content page in ArcGIS Online. This interface here is ArcGIS Online, so you'll all get access to this for the Datathon. You'll be getting an email before the event starts from ArcGIS notifications telling you that you've been invited to join the organization and to please create a password. Once you're logged in, you'll see your name up at the top, and this is going to signal that you can create your own content, share your content, interact with the others on your team, all through this platform. So, in order to add data to ArcGIS Online, you're going to go to Content at the top, and then over to New Item. Here you can see you can add data via URL, you can link to applications from outside of ArcGIS Online. You can also drag and drop files from your local machine. So here I'm going to drag and drop the zip file coming from my file explorer, and it's automatically going to process this and suggest that I create a hosted feature layer. This is the name for the data that you're going to work with within ArcGIS. Now it's essential here that you cite the source that you're bringing data in from and include all of the metadata that's shown on the GeoMedellin site, as well as pointing back to the GeoMedellin site so that people know where this data set is coming from. So I'm going to add the title. Summary here. So this is explaining that this particular data set is looking at the percentage of households reporting food insecurity in each of these administrative areas. This is going to upload and publish the service. I'm also going to copy and paste the credits and add this within our newly created feature service down here where there's the credits and attribution. And then within the description and the terms of use, I'm going to add the link back to the initial website, and I'll pull the data processing policies on open data from GeoMedellin to add those here as the terms of use. So very important when you're bringing data in from other sources to make sure that all of this is included. Now, I have this data set in ArcGIS. I can start to work with this in the map viewer to do my analysis. So the map viewer is going to be your main interface for interacting with the data, performing analysis, creating interactive applications, and maps. I can start by clicking on any of the map features so I can see for this area the values over time reported by this district. Now, if I go into the styles layer, I can start to change the symbology to tell a story with this data. The first step is going to be choosing an attribute. So I'll start by taking a look at the 2014 total food insecurity data. And ArcGIS Online has smart mapping capabilities. So just by selecting that field, it's going to put this onto a map, suggest a symbology, as well as another few styles that I could use to represent this data. So by default, darker blue is showing areas with higher food insecurity. I could also change this to differently sized circles. I could use both color and size so that the color and the size are both indicating areas with a higher food insecurity. So you can mess around with this, change it to tell the story that you're looking to tell. You can also show multiple variables in the same map. So if I want to look at how food insecurity has changed over time, I could add the variable for total 2023. And now the smart mapping is going to give me a different set of suggestions. So I could compare A to B. I could look at the predominant category, which doesn't make sense with this data set, but compare A to B could be interesting. Now I can see with that one click in blue the areas where food insecurity is improving from 2014 to 2023, and in red the areas where it's getting worse. And I can double check this by clicking on the pop-up. So 44% food insecurity in 2014, 22% in 2023. So now we're getting an interesting story out of this data. I can also combine the data that I've brought in from GeoMedellin with data from the ArcGIS Living Atlas. So when I select Add over on the left, I'm shown all of my content, so the layer that I just uploaded, but I could also go in to search the Living Atlas here. So this is just another interface for interacting with the same data I was showing on this website. If I know there's a data set I want, for example, if I want to look at supermarkets, I could either search that right here, or I can pull the item ID. So we have all the information here. If I found my data set, I want to bring this in, I can just copy and paste this string of numbers and search that. I could also search the title. Either way works, but now I've found this layer that's coming from ESRI Columbia and add that to my map. And now we're seeing even more of a story here. So some of these areas where food insecurity is getting worse are actually in areas with a pretty high number of supermarkets. And of course, I'm sure this is tied just to population density. So there's more context I'm going to want to add to this story, which I can do when I present the data in a map or in a story map later on. Now, the last thing I'm going to show in the map viewer is the ability to do analysis. So over here, we have an analysis button, and I can browse all of the spatial analysis tools that are available to me. They fall into a few key categories like summarizing my data, finding locations, enriching the data, such as with population information, analyzing patterns, so I could find hotspots or outliers in my data set. I can also use proximity, so creating buffers if I wanted to see how many people live within a certain distance of these supermarkets. And then there are just some managing data tools in here as well. So for this analysis, I want to summarize the number of these supermarkets in each polygon. I'm going to select the supermarkets. My polygon layer is the food insecurity. I can give this a name and estimate credits. Now this is important because running analysis in ArcGIS Online costs credits, which you will of course have access to a set amount for free, and we're still making sure here, but you'll each have about 100 credits to work with, each member of your team. So most analysis, especially at the city scale, is going to be a small amount of credits. This one's about 3. So it shouldn't become an issue, but keep an eye on it when you're running larger tools or over larger areas. You may want to filter your analysis to focus on a small area, or just make sure you're not running something on a bigger area than you actually need. I see a question. No size limit for shapefiles for the Living Atlas. It should be able to handle pretty large files. Now I'm running this tool. This should take a little under a minute to generate an output here. And then I'm going to get another set of these polygons with an added variable showing the number of supermarkets within each area. And this is just one example of one of the analysis tools you can run here. You're also welcome to pull this data out of ArcGIS, run analysis in R or in AWS, whatever platform you're most comfortable with. And then you can bring the data back in to do the symbology, to create a map with the output, whatever makes the most sense for your team and your workflows. So here we have the output from this analysis. I can select the new layer over on the left and update the symbology. So right now it's showing by the count of points. And this is not the most clear color scheme. So I can go into the style options for any of these and select different color schemes to make this a little clearer to the viewer. Now I can see where there's a high concentration of supermarkets, and I can contrast this with the areas of food insecurity. So more and more here, we're getting a story out of the data. Now I want to share this map and add it to a story map to showcase my results. I'll save the map. We'll call it food insecurity, supermarkets. Best practice, always add tags and a summary. Do as I say, not as I do. And then we can go ahead and share this publicly. This is important because everything you're creating for the hackathon, the judges are going to need to access, so you're going to want to share it to the public. And this is also going to flag if any of the underlying data sets in your map need to also have their sharing updated. So this is helpful for us that it's not going to end up with any broken links. So with one extra click, I can share my 2 analysis layers. Now on the left, I can go over here to create an app. So I can bring this into an instant app, which is a very basic interactive application. There are a few different templates. I can create a dashboard, or I could bring it into a story map. So story maps are powerful tools for sharing the outputs of your analysis, and they're very straightforward to work in. So I can add a title. It's already given me my map. I can add a caption. And then I click on this big green plus, which will show me everything else that I can add to this story. So I can add text to explain why I'm doing the analysis, what conclusions I'm drawing from this map. I can add code snippets so people can see and recreate the work. I can add additional maps, images, embed content from other sites. So even if you don't create maps in ArcGIS, even if you do all of your work elsewhere, you can embed YouTube videos here, links to other websites, and then just put that alongside text explaining your work. Now, I think a better way to show this is to actually look at the winning story map from last year's Datathon. So this is coming from the Ghana Statistical Service data science team. You can see they used the text and image features to explain the problem they were looking to solve in the Datathon. They explained their approach and the data that they used, and then they embedded different information products that they created using ArcGIS. So for example, here we have a dashboard. So this is showing a map, in this case of use of clean energy, and they can select different districts to focus in on specific areas. So the map and the dashboard are fully interactive within the story map. They also used a feature here where you can add text to explain different maps as you scroll. This is all on walking distance to schools, access to electricity. So this is a fantastic example of all of the different functionality you can use in a story map to share your work. I'll drop that link in the chat. So today I've walked through how to add data to ArcGIS Online, put it into a map with Living Atlas data, run analysis, bring it into a story map, and what an exemplary story map looks like. All of this is also available on the wiki. So here I run through again, available data, available tools, the map viewer, the web apps. I didn't touch on notebooks. We also have ArcGIS notebooks available if you do want to work in a code-based environment within ArcGIS Online. And then ArcGIS story maps here, how to access, as well as a link to different examples for some inspiration. So keep an eye out in the next week or so for an email that's going to look like this. This is going to be how you're going to join ArcGIS Online. You'll just need to log in, create a password, and then you'll have access to everything that I just showed. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Oh, also I should mention we're doing another office hours for ESRI next week on Tuesday. So that will cover a lot of this information again, but with more time for you to jump in, ask questions. Hopefully we should have sent out the first batch of invitation emails by then. So if you're having any trouble getting access, we'll reserve the last 15 minutes or so to troubleshoot anyone's access to ArcGIS Online.
Sean, you're muted.
I was just speaking very quietly, actually. No, just kidding. So there was a question about limitations to the SHP files that we're allowed to upload to Living Atlas. Are there any limitations that people should be aware of?
No limitations. We have plenty of storage in this org to support all of your work at the Datathon.
I'd assume so. And there are some questions that I think were directed at AWS. Let me see. Oh, so here's Kate. The story maps have a public link that remains after the event, correct?
Yes. It'll be up for at least a year after the event. We might have to, depending on how much there is in the org, we might have to take things down. I'll send a link to a site that you can also use to copy your work over to another org at the end if you do want to have it forever. But yeah, we're promising at least a year.
Kate, I have a question. How would you describe the approach is taken by, let's say, scientific teams that have to meet a burden of reproducibility when they create workflows in ArcGIS? How does ArcGIS enable reproducible research? And in the sense that let's say when you're submitting a paper to a journal, you have to, one of the requirements nowadays, especially in data science, you have to submit your source code. But ArcGIS is a low-code environment. So what tricks can our participants use to at least ensure that their workflows are reproducible? Is there some feature of ArcGIS that will kind of record the steps, or is there a way a standard for documenting their analysis that we could point them to?
Yeah, I would say definitely just keep track of which tools that you run. If you want to point to the documentation for each of the tools, we do have really extensive Esri documentation, especially for the analysis tools. So, for example, this is a list of the spatial statistics toolbox tools. So you'll see some of these same patterns that were highlighted in ArcGIS Online, the tools for analyzing patterns. It will go through each of the different inputs, what the parameters are for each of these tools, the Python code that goes into the tool, and everything that's coming out. So if you're doing an analysis that you want to make sure everyone understands exactly what went into the tool,
Yeah.
you can copy out these kind of parameters, cite the documentation. This is a great resource for understanding what's going on in the back end for any analysis that you're running. I would also cite that the story maps are a really powerful tool for that as well, to show exactly what steps you did and why.
Absolutely. I think using the story map, so whatever your analysis is, make sure you walk us through it a little bit. It doesn't have, this is not a scientific journal publication type requirement, but definitely keep this idea of reproducibility when you think about the submissions. Yeah, thank you so much. Any other questions? I see. Yeah, we do have access to the story map of the Ghana winners. I believe we have that in the chat here. And so I think at this point in the webinar, we've reached the end of our ESRI section, and I think we're into our closing remarks. Any final questions on ESRI, please feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. But I did want to say a few things, about the Datathon. So all the things you've seen here are resources that will be made available to you for the Datathon. In some ways you won't have access to dive into use these tools until the Datathon starts. In particular for AWS, with ESRI, I believe there'll be some read-only access that will be made available at some point. But I do want to say that there's a reward to be had for becoming knowledgeable of these tools in advance. We have a lot of resources that have been provided in terms of the publicly available documentation from these major platforms, as well as the previous office hours that have been done for AWS, and looking through some of last year's story maps from ESRI. I believe that there's a lot of participants can do in advance to really get up to speed. And really, the focus is on finding the right. You have a limited time, so you have 72 hours to do this, so you don't want to get bogged down in things that don't add value. So the more you can learn in advance, the better. So on that note, I think, is there anything? Oh, the wiki. I just wanted to say this is something we've said many times, but the wiki that we've provided is a great resource for learning more about a lot of these things. So if there's any further confusion, please browse the wiki and try to unblock yourself there. And if you have questions, we have a Discord chat. I will try to be more active there, as will others. I think we have a good number of people that are going to be providing support during this Datathon. So if you have any questions, put it in the Discord. And I think Alex just put in the chat a great idea. This time before the Datathon starts is a great time to look through the data sets that are available. And there's a lot of data that's out there. And it's going to be very important to come with a plan of attack and understand that the opportunities and challenges you're going to have as you carve out a particular solution. you don't want to wait until the Datathon starts to start thinking about this. So in the time you have now, look over the theme, look over the data, brainstorm, use AI tools to get whatever ideas you need to get, and try to prepare yourself, because I believe what is it? It's a little over a week. So we have it's the 30th. It starts on the 8th, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the final week for this. So yeah. I don't really have anything else to say. I believe I would like to offer an opportunity for any of our other partners, Sophia, if she's here, to say make some remarks.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the space. I would like to have some reminders to the participants. It's very important for us to know who are the participants that will be here in person at Ruta N. We have confirmed almost most part of the participants, but still there are other teams that haven't yet mentioned who are their members that will be coming on person. So it would be great if you could send us an email in the one we have confirmed your participation in order for us to logistically also organize ourselves to receive you in the best way possible. Also, next Friday we will start the event on the 8th. So it would be great if we could have your participations not at 2 p.m., which is like the sighting hour. We will be opened from 1:30 p.m. in order for us to do the registration and have like everything controlled for all the participants. There we will have like the opening event with different participants, with speakers, and we will also give you like the guidelines for the following days. The starting hour for the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday will be 9 in the morning until 5 p.m. And the last day, which is the 11th of November, we will have the closing ceremony at 5 p.m. and it will be half an hour where we would give you like the guidelines on how we will do like the evaluation and the following steps of the datathon. You have the email of the datathon in your contact email. If you prefer, I will send it also here. And any question you have or something I can support from my part, it would be great. Just let me know. And thank you. I think that was all, Shan.
Thanks so much, Sophia. That's very helpful, and we're very grateful for you and your organization for hosting this large number of people that will be there. So this is very. So there are some questions in the chat about where to get information, like face-to-face events, and I just wanted to say we have the website I put in the chat. That is really a great starting point for discovering a lot of the answers to these questions. And we do have an email address that Alex just shared. If you have questions, you can email that. I do believe our Discord channel is going to be more active in the next week. So if we have a link to that, maybe we can stick that in the chat as well. I've been seeing notifications on this, so that is another great way to stay in touch with people and continue this further. So I believe that is the end of the show, and we did budget a few minutes for final. Yeah, here we have the Discord server in the chat. Make sure I would encourage all of you to join. It's a very pleasant experience. If there are no further questions, I want to thank everyone for attending, and thank you especially to our presenters from ESRI and AWS, and from Columbia, Sophia as well. On that note, have a great day, and we'll see you next week. See ya.